you know. So that, to see the scope of our influence is, incredible. So I am so glad that you joined us, Kathy, and to the rest of you as well. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mohammed, and he will introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Bob. Uh, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Our speaker is Cesar Espinosa. He's a proud immigrant from Mexico. He came to the U.S. in 1991 at the age of 5. Currently, he is a DACA recipient. Mr. Espinosa attended the prestigious Michael E. DeBakey High School for health professions in HISD. He then went on to study at Houston Community College, subsequently transferring to the University of Houston, where he studied political science. Mr. Espinosa is a co-founder and current executive director of the largest immigrant-led civil rights organization in Texas named FIEL, which is Familias Inmigrantes y Estudiantes en la Lucha. I know I butchered it really bad.
You did
Immigrant
great.
families and students in the fight. FIEL is immigrant-led organization that seeks to empower the immigrant community in Houston, the state of Texas, and the understate. Mr. Espinosa has served and is currently serving on a variety of boards at the local, state, and national level. He is always looking to work on a variety of issues, including race relations, police reform, and a variety of issues uplifting many communities. He is an advocate of immigrant rights, student rights, and human rights. With over 2 decades of experience in the field of organizing, he has learned how true grassroots organizing can truly make the difference in our communities. Mr. Espinosa considers himself a proud historian. So please join me in welcoming Cesar to our monthly meeting. Go ahead, Cesar.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. And I will I will at the risk of calling out Mohammed, I will want to thank him and apologize to him because he was I was a little bit distant with my texting at the beginning, but it's because we've been so busy. And I'll tell you guys the reasons why in a couple of seconds. But I did want to thank Mohammed for being a friend of Fiel's and for bringing us into this space and to share information. And more than I'm going to give you guys a lot of information. A lot of it's going to be very heavy, but I also would love to answer some questions towards the end. So then that way we can have more of a dialogue about this very complex issue of immigration. I am a first generation immigrant from Mexico City, Mexico. My family brought me here at the age of 5. I lived in Houston, except for an awkward year where I moved to Ohio in the early 90s. But I just stayed there for a year because it was definitely too cold and nobody spoke Spanish up there. So my family decided, you know what, let's go back to Houston where it's a bit warmer and more people speak our language. And so we came back to Houston. I went to GT schools, elementary, middle school, and high school. When I graduated from high school, I got a 1599 of the 600 on my SAT. I got accepted to Brown, Yale, Cornell University, a bunch of Ivy Leagues. But because I was undocumented and because I didn't have any money, being one of 3 children from a single mom, I was unable to go to these Ivy Leagues. So at that point, the only option for me was to go to community college. And so I went to community college. And then I subsequently transferred to the University of Houston, go Cougs, where I got my degree in political science. And then after that, it was the what do we do now? And then well, during that time is what do we do now? Because if that was happening to me, coming from a very prestigious school that had a lot of resources in terms of counselors and stuff like that, then what could we do to help out other students? So at that time in 2007, we began what we thought was going to be a small club of students to talk about being undocumented, sharing resources. And what started off as a tiny group of about 10 students has grown over the last 18 years to be the largest immigrant-led civil rights organization in the state of Texas, one of the largest in the country. So now we work on, we still run our continuing education program. We run our civic engagement program. And we also run a legal clinic where we help immigrants get access to immigration attorneys, but at very low cost, or in case of deportations, at no cost to them. And you're one of the first groups that I shared this with, but we're adding a fourth program this year. We just launched a pilot program on mental health for the immigrant community in particular. And so right now we're in the piloting phase of it to start rolling it out, to start looking for funding for it, because our people are going through a lot of mental health issues right now, just because of being afraid of what's going to happen, the uncertainty of what is to happen, and the plethora of changes that this administration is making on a day-to-day basis. For us, it's almost like we wake up every morning. Just this morning, we had a few very challenging Supreme Court decisions, and they just kind of keep coming. And then once that ball starts rolling, other things are on top of it, and it is a very, very confusing system. I mean, most of the decisions that have come out of the Supreme Court have been on the emergency injunctions that other judges have put. But we're still not even getting to the merits of these different cases that the administration is challenging, like the 14th Amendment, and things like that, birthright citizenship, et cetera, et cetera. So going back a little bit to my story, there is I have to fix that. Thank you for pointing it out, Mohammed. I am no longer a DACA recipient. After 33 years, I was able to get married. Finally, somebody said yes to me, because I'm very difficult to live with, and she's phenomenal. I met my wife in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. Well, I didn't meet her. I reconnected with her after many years of not speaking and being friends, and we got married in 2020. And it took me. I didn't want to fix my status through her, and I told her, no, we're gonna wait. I have DACA. I'm okay. But then we have a son who's 7, and so explaining to him a few years later that Papi could not go to Mexico to travel with him on vacation was one of the hardest. It was one of the hardest days of my life till today. And so at that day, I remember when I was 8 years old, and my mom had a similar conversation with me on, hey, if you ever come home and we're not here, this is a little address book that you should find at the bottom drawer of the dresser. And in the back, it's your uncles and your grandparents' numbers in Mexico, so that you can call them, so that they'll know what to do to make sure that you guys are safe. And so my son transported me to those days, and I said, you know what, this is it. I have to get my status now. And so we started the process in 2023, and about a year and a half later, USCIS granted me my green card last year. And we thought everything was over. We celebrated. We had a big party, and everything was good. And then something happened in November that I don't like to remember. And here we are again now, still in fear that one day, because of the type of work that I do, immigration is just going to come get me. And so right now I'm under strict orders from my wife to not interrupt any governors or anything like that. I mean, not that I've ever done that before, and it's in YouTube under my YouTube. I mean, not that I've ever done that before, and it's in my Twitter under my Twitter tag. But I'm just saying, if y'all want to go look at it, I have interrupted. Because of the work that we do, we've interrupted governors and mayors and politicians and things like that. And so right now I'm under strict orders to not do that, to try to avoid arrest at all costs. So in 2 years, I'll be able to apply for citizenship. That'll be after 35 years of being in the United States. But prior to DACA, from 1990 until 2012, so for 22 years, I could not apply for any type of legal status. And even under DACA, I could only have a work permit, but could not jump the next step to become a legal permanent resident. Now, I am part of a mixed status family where my mom and my brother are U.S. citizens. But if my brother were to petition for me, how long do y'all think it would take immigration to tell me that that is my brother? Anybody shout it out?
20 years.
22 years. It would take immigration to send me a letter saying, congratulations, Caesar, you filed a petition in 2025. And in 2047, I would get a letter saying, yes, this is your brother. You can move on to step number two. And step number two would still require for me to file a different form. And then I would have to, because I am over the, I would be under the, I would be over the age of 21 in 2047, because I'm about to turn 21 this year. No, I'm just kidding. I'm way older than that. But I would be over 21 in 2047. Then I would have to go. There is no pardon for me, so I would have to go back to Mexico where I'm from, and then go to my interview, and then be given a minimum of two to a maximum of a 10-year bar. And so I would probably not be able to come back to the U.S. in 2049, or at the worst case scenario, in 2057, at the age of 62 years old, if I started everything today. So that's where we're at with that. And the reason why I say that is because I know not in this group, but in other groups or in other spaces, people are like, I've been asked, like, why did you wait? Why do you wait so long? Why do people wait so long to get their papers? Why do people want to be illegal? But in reality, we live in a system that's family based, but it's also economics based. If you have money to come from other countries, you can already get a pseudo gold card like the one that Trump is offering. If you have an investor, if you're an investor and you can commit $500,000 in a business over 2 years, then they basically expedite your path to residency. But the majority of people that come here come like my family in search of a better opportunities, in search of better jobs, better education, et cetera, et cetera. So I know Mohammed said I had 6.5 hours to explain to you guys everything that's happening. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll try to condense the last 6 months into what's happening. I mean, the Trump administration has attacked birthright citizenship. They have done away with most TPS programs. So TPS was designed for people to be able to have the ability. The temporary protective status was for people from places like El Salvador, Haiti, Venezuela, where basically it would say those countries cannot support you a mass exodus of people if they go to that country, because they're either not safe or they don't have the infrastructure or the political or there's political turmoil. But unfortunately, the Trump administration has said, we don't care. And in the terms of Haitians, they said, we can send you all back. Furthermore, it's now legal under the Trump administration to deport people to other places where they're not from. Just recently, Quilmar Obregón, who was originally deported to El Salvador, where he's from, was brought back by a federal judge and then had his hearing, and then was in a detention center here, got released, and he was picked up a few days later, and now he got sent to, I believe, Uganda or Congo or something like
Yeah,
that.
Uganda,
Where,
Uganda.
is it Uganda? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know anybody there, and so there's these kinds of things that the administration is doing to make sure. The other thing that's very worrisome is that they're weaponizing every single faction of police uh, officer that they can think of to crack down on illegal immigration. There is just today the Supreme Court's lifted the temporary injunction saying that they cannot racially profile people or have roving checkpoints. So now, not only in LA, but all over the country, immigration can drive around and basically stop and frisk whoever they want and ask for documentation. The other thing on top of that is that they just announced earlier in the day, probably around noon, that they're going to be giving bonuses to police departments who cooperate with ICE, up to $500 per officer. Like, they're going to take the whole department and they're going to see how many officers are currently employed, and they're going to give entity a $500 to $1,000 bonus per officer if they allow police ICE collaboration in their ranks. And then there's also now there before USCIS was the administrative side of immigration where you would file paperwork just like I told you my brother would file for me just like my wife did. And now we have seen an increase of folks who may qualify for something, but then there's an issue with like the paperwork or something, and they don't get admitted on the spot now because at that point, immigration knows that you are undocumented. They have been detaining people at some of these USCIS check-ins, as well as now they're saying that they're gonna even go after attorneys or things like that in some of these check-ins. And before I forget that they're also weaponizing the court system. So can you imagine being an immigrant and being called to court because that's what you have to do because you maybe are fighting for political asylum? And when you go to court, and we've seen this happen here in Houston and in other parts of the country, when they go to court, sometimes officer administratively close the case, which is, okay, we're not gonna deport you anymore, supposedly. But as soon as that case, go apply for something else. But as soon as that case is closed, in that gray area from you closing your case until you're able to apply for another benefit, you're technically here in the country undocumented. And so there's a coercion between the folks who are the prosecutors and the ICE people inside of the courtroom and physical ICE agents that sit outside of these courtrooms and without a single badge, without identifying who they are, with their faces covered, they're basically kidnapping people outside of these courtrooms. And when I say kidnapping, I mean even the cars that they drive, they have no insignia of who they are. And so when this started happening in Houston, we unfortunately saw maybe a dozen of these detentions. And until they left the parking lot, and even after the fact, we didn't know who had taken them or if it was even a legitimate person who had taken them because they don't identify themselves, they don't say who they're with, and they definitely don't answer questions for folks. So we started a program here in Houston where we have court observers that go and monitor these situations. And thanks to this program, we in at least one location, we've been able to stop immigration from showing up and picking up people. But there's other areas like the one on in the north side by IAH where it's a little bit trickier to get in there. So unfortunately, we're not able to be as successful at that location as in other locations. But there's more things unfortunately coming. Now, the impact that this is having on the community is a lot of folks are afraid to really do anything. To go shopping, to go to work, to go to school, to send their kids to school. Um, and it's really creating it's more fomenting an underground community with a lot of these folks who are just too afraid to do anything. And more importantly, or as important, is that these folks are also afraid to report crime as witnesses or victims of crime. And so in the past, during Trump 1.0, we actually had here in Southwest, in the Gulfton area, there was a group of men who, for about 6 months, kept getting robbed at gunpoint on Friday evenings because people knew that they would come home with cash. And for 6 months, this gang of thieves went unchecked. And because people were so afraid to call the police, so afraid to come forward, that and this organized crime ring knew about it, and they just kept targeting and targeting them, and they were getting away with it for over 6 months because they knew that folks were not going to say anything. Now, the other thing that really worries us is the incidence of domestic violence is gonna increase, but we're not gonna know about it because before it would increase and people would report it. And there has been cases here in the Houston area where women reported and they get checked for their immigration status. And so that has sent shockwaves to the community. And we hear from a lot of people that are saying, we don't want to call the police even for minor traffic accidents, for or maybe I was hurt in an accident, but I didn't do anything about it, and I just lost my car, lost my livelihood, but I rather that and start all over than to have to call the police and then potentially have ICE um, be involved in this. Now, there is political factions in Houston that are working with immigration, including some of the constable's office, including the sheriff's office, and including the city of Houston under our new mayor and our new chief of police. And they'll tell you that when we ask them, what are you doing in immigration? They'll have the cynicism to tell us, we don't talk about immigration. That's a federal issue. Yet as of last month, we had 400 recorded cases where immigration was called by the Houston Police Department to come pick up somebody, and it was in a variety of ways. Not only for folks who may have already had encounters with ICE, but now they carry around these fingerprint looking things that look like wallets, where you put your fingers on there. They fingerprint you on the street, and they can tell whether you have status or not, allegedly. And let me explain why I say allegedly. So this is a real story. I don't know why these things happen to me. I have theories on why they happen to me, but I remember how I told you I got my residency in May of 2024. So I'm a procrastinator. My wife will tell you that I'm a professional procrastinator, and so my driver's license under my original work permit expired in May of 2025, and I had to go get a new driver's license in May of 2025, and so I waited until like April 20th of 2025 to make my appointment because I thought it was going to be same thing. I was like, I'm a legal permanent resident. I have my green card. It should not be that hard, right? And but before I needed to do that, I needed to go to the Social Security office to update my status. And so I went to the Social Security office and everything was fine. They were like, "Oh yes, we can do this for you." And then at the end, I guess when they were ready to submit my paperwork, the Social Security lady is like, "Wait, something's wrong." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "You don't appear in the immigration database." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And she was like, "You don't appear in the immigration database. Like you just don't appear." And I was like, "Oh, this is a little bit unconcerning." This is a little nerve wracking. And so she was like, well, it's not a big deal. We have to open up a case with immigration and then they'll run you through a verification. It should take like 2 to 6 weeks to be able to do that. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And she was like, but in the meantime, they gave me this paper, this letter saying the error. And then they were like, you can still go get your driver's license. And I was like, okay, well, not a big deal. So then I make my appointment to the driver's license a few days later, and I'm at the driver's license, and the same thing happens. They're like, you don't appear in the immigration database. It still appears as though you are undocumented. And so they were like, same thing. It's just going to take 2 to 6 weeks to fix it. So 2.5 months later, I finally get my letter from the Social Security office and from DPS saying that I've been verified. But what worried us is during that time is had I been stopped by DPS or somebody who had access to the little fingerprinting machines, they could have fingerprinted me, and in the database, even though I already had my green card, in the database, somebody hadn't clicked or something hadn't clicked the right button, and so I would still have appeared as though I was undocumented, and I could have been taken in by ICE and held until they determined or until they did some more research to find out that I really was a legal permanent resident. And so these things happen, and they happen more often than we think. Because somebody had put on in the chat that it's a broken system. Yes, it is a very broken system. And instead of putting money into the arm that says, hey, let's not make people wait 22 years to see if they're each other's relatives, they have decided to put money into ICE, which is now the 14th largest military force in the world. And that's very disconcerting. And so there's a lot at play. There's not too much hoping that things are going to change for the better, but rather get worse before they get better. Now, the Trump administration wants to send the National Guard in to calm rebel rousers around the country. So I heard somebody protesting Tesla. You know, they might say that that's subversive and want to find you know, it, people who are protesting and speaking up. And then there's a whole onslaught of things that are potentially could be coming before things get better. And somebody just mentioned the judges. One of the and I'm telling you, there's literally almost every issue you can think of has been affected by this. So last week they had announced that they're going to bring on immigration judges to help relieve some of this pressure from the immigration courts, but the caveat here is that these judges don't have to have any immigration experience, and anybody who has worked in this immigration space can tell you that things are changing almost on a daily basis. And in the last 25 years that I've been doing this, there's literally very rarely where two cases are exactly alike because people have different lives, right? And so immigration is one of the most complex, one of the most difficult branches of law, and you can ask any attorney that. And to say that they're going to hire additional judges without immigration experience tells me that they're just going to hire immigration judges to expedite deportations rather than to actually get people the help that they need. And so there's just so much going on. When I tell you all, I know I kid around and say that we could talk about this for 9.5 hours. It really is true. There's just so much going on, but those are some of the biggest changes that have been happening. And now what people can do to help. There's so much we can do to help. Everybody should be speaking up. Everybody should be writing the members of Congress. You all are having the luncheon. We host different events where people can come and write their members of Congress or call or go visit them. And more importantly, or as importantly, is also support all the people that are going through it. And there's a variety of ways that people can do that. If you know somebody that is having these issues, you can always contact them to our office. We usually are able to pair them up with pro bono attorneys to start at least looking at their cases and start the process of trying to get them a bond. Even though bonds right now, an average bond is $7,000 to $15,000 per person, and it has to be paid in cash or cashier's check. And there's no bonding companies that are accepted in immigration. And right now, an average attorney is charging anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, which is fair to represent somebody in a bond hearing. So we're talking about families whose medium income, like in our membership, is about $36,000 for a family of four, now has to come up with about $20,000 to $30,000 overnight to be able to at least get their loved one out of detention, and then hire an additional attorney or that same attorney to try to see if there's any immigration relief. So one of the things we do is we help people find those resources. We help them at least explain the complexity of these cases. But we also guide and stand with people to make sure that their rights are preserved and that they are able to defend themselves in case immigration happens. We offer know your rights trainings to organizations, to individuals, at religious centers, wherever anybody would want us to come and have these talks. And we have Know Your Rights, the red cards. We have Know Your Rights cards. We've been able to give out about 60,000 in the last 6 months, but we have many more. If you all want to get some, you can talk to Mohammed, and we can figure out a way to get some of those so that you can give them to your friends and your neighbors. So I'll stop there. I know there's some questions that people may have, and I would love to answer some questions.
I have a quick question. Is there any specific piece of legislation that we can lobby for, when we contact our representatives?
I want to say yes, but it's also a complicated yes because there is legislation like the there's the Dream and Promise Act and there's the Dignity Act that have been introduced that are both pro-immigrant legislation, but they have their issues. The Dream and Promise Act only covers about 3/4 of the current DACA population, so it wouldn't encompass everybody who already has deferred action. It's a little bit restrictive in that sense of like you have to have gone to a community college or be in college or stuff like that. And for a lot of people, obtaining a higher education is unattainable right now, especially after the Trump administration did away with in-state tuition here in the state of Texas. And they're trying to do that all over the country. And then the Dignity Act basically it's almost unattainable because of the fines that they want to attach to every single step. Every single step, and there's like a 4-step process, carries anywhere from a fine from $5,000 to $10,000 per step. And once again, for a lot of people, that will be unattainable. But there are good starting points, I guess. If you want to, the Dignity Act and the Dream and Promise Act are good. They're good starting points, but we would definitely, if they were to move forward, we would definitely like to see amendments to those so they wouldn't be as exclusive as they are right now, as they are written.
Could you share, after this is all over, of course, if you could like email to Mohammed like a specific, I don't know, script, a brief script, so we would know exactly how to phrase it?
Yes,
that would be helpful.
we definitely have those.
Juliana had a question. Juliana, go ahead and
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do at FIEL. It truly makes a difference to the immigrant communities all around Houston. I had a question. So I know there's like nonprofits who offer immigration legal services. But I know some of them are limited
yeah, it's
in
breaking
what
up for
they can
all
help
of us.
Yeah.
with. Just because of
Wait,
how complicated the system is. Oh, sorry. Can you all hear me? Oh,
Can you start again? Because you were breaking up at the
Okay.
beginning of your question.
Is it
Yeah.
Maybe if you turn your video off, it might be
okay?
helpful.
Is it still
Try to turn your
breaking
video
up,
off.
or is it better now?
No, it's better. It's better now. Yes. There we go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There we go.
So
Yes.
I know there's a lot of nonprofits who help out with the immigration process, but sometimes they're limited in what they're able to help with just because of how complicated it is. But if someone has a question on a specific detail about their immigration application, like after they've already applied, but they're not really sure what the next steps are, or if something if something comes up and they're like, what do I do about this? Like, how would they be able to get advice for that situation? Because every case is different. Like, does FIEL have a resource for that, or do you know, like, or a hotline, or
So there is a hotline in Houston where folks can specifically call. I don't know the number of it, but it's the Houston Immigration Legal, the Hills hotline, where folks may be able to get the complicated part about all of this is that most people, even our folks, we have policies where we can't necessarily answer people's questions like that because if we make a mistake, then we could ruin people's cases, right? So the best advice right now, even though I know it sounds complicated, is for folks to get legal representation so their legal representative can be able to guide them through that process. Now, thank you for asking that question because now it brings me, it's a good segue into talk about that a lot of these huge organizations who used to have huge immigration departments basically have suffered catastrophic budget cuts by this administration, like Catholic Charities and other places, and they have had to fire maybe half of their staff. And the problem is that they have less staff, but the call volume has tripled or quadrupled. In our case, prior to January, we would get 1 to 2 deportation calls a month that somebody may have been picked up by ICE. Right now, we're getting anywhere from 15 to 20 cases a day that folks are getting picked up by ICE either on their way to work or and so we are at capacity as well, just like everybody else. And so somebody in the chat was talking about, yes, we also encourage folks to get legal representation so that they don't go to court by themselves. But at the end of the day, they still would have to comply with whatever, because if you miss court, then you give ICE an excuse to come pick you up at your home, or things like that. And the other thing that ICE is doing with that is they're really relying heavily on what they call collateral damage. So, which is why it's so important for people to know their rights. Because if they come to your home and they knock on the door and you open the door, and your family is also undocumented, they can question them as well and detain them, even though they may not have any criminal record, or they weren't looking for that person. So that's why it's so important for folks to know that they have the right to remain silent, that they have the right to not open these doors, unless they have a signed judicial warrant. And even then, the only person that should be detained is the person that they're looking for. But unless we get in front of people and tell them that, many people would just get scared and open the doors and infringe on their own personal rights.
Thank you so much. And then also thank you so much to Janet for the comment. It was very helpful.
Okay, who's got the next question?
Well, I am kind of
Kathy.
wondering about something.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I would say it's kind of mind-blowing what you said about having to wait 22 years or what, like for verification that you have a family member in the United States, I guess. Like, can you kind of explain that a little more, or like?
Yes. So, well, so let's start with the root of the issue. In 1994, the then Clinton administration signed into law what's known as the IRA bars. So the IRA bars basically uh, disallowed people from petitioning people and not having to leave the United States. Prior to the IRA bars, people could petition brothers, sisters, and everything would be done here in the U.S. and people would get green cards here. Now with the IRA bars, it basically said that there for certain categories of relatives, for parents, for siblings, and other categories, that there was going to be no pardons, and so then they would have to physically leave the U.S. and wait for some of these things to happen. Now, it's also important to point out that they have also made it incredibly difficult to access some of these services or some of these informations, and they make it so incredibly difficult that there's now this backlog of 22 years, and it's only like that for people who come from like Mexico, El Salvador, and things like that. There's other countries. Every country has a timeline where if you come from another country, there may be variances in the amount of wait times, but it's also important to point out that that a lot of or most, if not all, well, no, not all, but most of immigration processes are family-based petitions, or in the process of family reunification. So it gets really complicated for folks. We've had a lot of folks who work in construction who may have lived here for 20, 30 years, but they never brought over their families, or like their families are in another country. And when they get detained, they may not even be granted a bond because they don't have a direct relative here who's a U.S. citizen. And so it's so complex, and it takes so much time that a lot of people choose to unfortunately enter the country illegally or illicitly, because rather than wait 22 years, they starvation doesn't wait 22 years if you have a family who's starving in another country. The other important thing to point out is that for the last 10 years, for the last 12 years now, actually, net migration from Mexico has been at zero, meaning that the same amount of people that are coming in are the same amount of people that are self-deporting or going back. And the two largest numbers of communities who are migrating are people from Venezuela because of the political issues that Venezuela has going on, and people from Guatemala. And people from Guatemala are not migrating because, I mean, they are migrating because of political turmoil and lack of jobs. But one of the biggest push factors from folks from Guatemala is climate change. So there was a huge volcano that erupted there about 7 or 8 years ago now, and it wiped out about 65% of Guatemala's farmland, and that saturated the farmers lost their jobs, saturated under industries, and then forces people to migrate to a country that still allows them to have jobs and still continues to exploit them for less than minimum wage and things like that.
Does anybody else have a? Oh, there we go. Bob, go ahead.
Yes, there's a two-part question. One, I heard today that there's a stepped up attention being paid to Asians in our country by the immigration authorities. And also, have you or your group ever met with Cruz and or Cornyn? And what was their response when you met with them?
What was the first question?
About the stepped up focus on Asian immigrants.
Yeah, on Haitians or Asian immigrants?
Asians,
Haitian.
ASI.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What was it?
Asian, like Japan,
Oh, yes.
China.
Yes. So yes, I mean there has been a stepped up, and that's the other part that people don't realize is that immigration is so complex. For example, in Houston, we have the largest Vietnamese community living outside of Vietnam, and there's a lot of undocumented folks in that community. But the reason why we don't see them is because they're not as vocal as other communities or things like that. But the Asian community has suffered immensely because of immigration. If you all have not read a book called Farewell to Manzanar. Yeah, I really would encourage you all to read it. And I see a lot. Miss Kathy has a lot of books behind her. Maybe she has a Farewell to Manzanar book somewhere back there. But it talks about Japanese internment camps after World War II and how many Japanese immigrants who were U.S. citizens were deported, even though they were U.S. citizens. So there has been a mix up. I mean, a vamp up of folks going into the Asian communities because they're trying to basically do a sweep all. Now, your second question was yes, we have met with Cornyn and Cruz, but it's so many years ago, and the reason why we, as an organization, and stopped meeting with them was because we would bring up these issues of like 22 years and all this stuff, and they would pretend to listen to us, and then a few days later they would come up with talking points against even those things. So they would say 22 years is too little of a wait. People should be waiting 30 or 40 years for citizenship and things like that. So we kind of said as a policy that we would. There's unfortunately no change in them, but we still continue to encourage people to write to them, to listen to them, because what we hear from most Congress people, even some of the friendlier ones, is that they're getting bombarded with calls from the anti-immigrant side, but our side does not do as good of a job as to contact them and tell them, hey, this is what we want, and it's interesting because here in Houston, the um the uh, the Rice entity, ¿cómo se llama? The Kinder Institute, just did a study a few months ago that said that I think 68 or 70% of Houstonians would favor some sort of comprehensive immigration reform. But if we don't call folks, if we don't get those folks to call their representatives and start beating that drumbeat, then the representatives will believe like the rest of rural Texas believes that immigrants are enemies, not friends.
And you
Anybody?
said you'll give us, I'm sorry, you said you'll give us some talking points on that?
Yes. Hmm.
I have a question, and I don't know if you can answer it or not.
Yes.
But I've been reading, I've been seeing more and more reports from rural America, farmers, uh, people that, people in the ship, in the fishing industry, etc., how this is really having a negative impact on them. And I was wondering, do you have any people that maybe they haven't changed their mind for humanitarian reasons or ethical reasons, but they're starting to realize that part of my language, that this is coming back to bite them in the ass financially? Have you have you seen any change of heart in that area?
So yesterday, we were actually just briefly touching up on that before the rest of the folks came on. But yesterday, I was thrown aback by this report that I don't know if it was a Wall Street Journal or somebody covered, but it was on TikTok where they had I believe I think it was in Tennessee or Alabama where they had this meeting of farmers, like a convention of farmers, and one of the sound bites that came out of that was this guy saying, "Mr. Trump, I love you, but it's this is hurting us. This is hurting us." And it was a group, exactly the people that you're mentioning, is a group of people who are getting hurt financially because of what's happening. And we see that more and more when Florida passed their anti-immigrant law. One of the reasons why the governor reverted that law was because so many businesses came forward and said, "This is bad. This is hurting us. This is hurting tourism in Florida, and we need to revert some of these laws." So some of the more hard-hitting, prior to Trump being elected, they did revert some of the more hard-hitting policies in Florida that were very anti-immigrant. But now
So it is
they're
making a
building
small
alligator
difference.
Alcatraz and stuff like that. Yes.
Mhm.
Well, we're
Okay.
hoping that. Well, unfortunately, and it's I don't know that we're hoping for that because the more that that voice becomes ominous, that means the more people are getting picked up. But we're hoping that right now more people will preemptively speak out to say that this is going to hurt them very soon. And restaurants here in one of the areas here in Houston that got hit very hard was the restaurant industry. When the first
Mm.
couple of weeks where we were when we would be out in the field talking to people and things like that, we would stop by a lot of these local establishments and they would be empty from people just not wanting to either go out and expose themselves or try not to spend as much money because they're getting ready for the what if. They're putting a lot of money now into savings because if they do get deported, they want to have something to fall back on.
Okay.
And at a Mexican restaurant once a week, a group of us. And in the last 3 weeks, we have noticed a tremendous downturn in the attendance of people going in to eat. I mean, we used to go in and we would see maybe half to 3/4 full. Now it's down to about a quarter full. And we talked to one of the managers a couple of 3 weeks ago, and he said that they're really starting to hurt it. And they're trying to keep their prices down, even though a lot of the prices have gone up by a third or more. And so this is a real problem. Yeah.
And that's the other thing too with the talk of tariffs and all this stuff and the price of food items going up. A lot of restaurants are hurting in a variety of facets, not only from employees not wanting to show up, but also from patrons not wanting to show up to folks to now them raising their prices and folks saying, it's getting too expensive to eat out. So there's a lot of things that are happening
Yeah.
that are going to hurt our communities in a variety of ways.
Does anybody else have any questions? Going once. I'll just make one quick question, Cesar. In all these implementation of policies and actions and all that, do you see a difference in uh, the demographics that are being impacted, is it worse for people of color versus not?
Yeah, absolutely. And with the decision that the administration made today about um you getting picked up by your or people being able to get picked up because of skin color or accent or and literally immigration saying that those are legitimate excuses to pick people up, it's going to definitely hurt communities of color a lot more. And this was already happening. So last year or 2 years ago, Governor Abbott signed Operation Lone Star, which basically deputized eh, DPS officers to conduct kind of like these pseudo raids or like pull people over that they suspect that are being in the state of Texas illegally. And in one of the reports that one of the publications came out with, they found a report where a DPS officer actually wrote that he was coming out of a gas station, and he searched the car because it smelled like illegal aliens.
Good God.
And I don't know why, I don't know how, but that was his legitimate excuse. And the DPS and everybody else took it as okay, well, good job. Thank you for apprehending these people. And so unfortunately, we're going to see more and more of that as things continue to ramp up. And if the and when the administration puts National Guard troops in some of these major cities that they consider sanctuary cities.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but I do have one more question.
Yes.
My church was interested in becoming a sanctuary church, but when I did some investigation into that, I was told that that was no longer an option. Is that true? Do houses of faith have any options when it comes
Well,
to, becoming a
yeah.
sanctuary, offering sanctuary?
Well, unfortunately, you're right. They used to have options. It used to be that other administrations respected, houses of worship and things like that. But through executive order, that's also been removed, and basically ICE has carte blanche to go anywhere that they please and to detain people. So it's really trying times, but I'm a hopeless optimist and hoping that through neighborhood, through other actions, we can help hold on for the next 3 years, and then hopefully get enough people interested in participating civically to change Congress and to change the person that's sitting in the White House. And there's two hands up. I don't know if we want
Yeah,
to.
Zoe was first and then Bob. So Zoe, go ahead, unmute and ask.
Thank you, Mohammed. And Cesar, thank you so much for being here and your important work and conversations with us. So closely related, right, to encouraging civic participation. I'm really interested, and I believe Julie, right, had that great phrase of the change of heart. I know for myself, I'm around a lot of left-leaning, progressive people, and yet I hate to say it, we're not flooding the phones, we're not flooding the letters to the editors, and so I'm curious maybe if you have recommendations for ways that we could maybe begin conversations or maybe help motivate maybe change or action or even changing awareness or apathy or just the news is so scary, I'm going to be in just this denial bubble when it comes to these significant just where of course lives are at stake.
I'm an organizer, so I love this question. Thank you for asking it, Zoe. So the first thing you can do is and this is a selfish plug. Share the information that we're sharing out there on our social media at FIEL Houston. We're sharing information, we're sharing events, we're sharing workshops. I believe this Thursday we have a training on how people can become court observers. Like we're doing a lot of work to make sure that we get the community involved and engaged and standing up for people. We also have direct actions that we do all the time. So whatever you can participate in, whatever capacity you can participate in, that's great. The second thing is, yes, people should be sharing their thoughts, and people should be writing to the editors. People should be calling members of Congress, and people should be uplifting the the good stories, not just the stories, but also all the stories that come out of our community that are awesome. I think one of the greatest privileges in living in Houston is that even though I was undocumented here for 33 years and didn't get to travel the world, I feel like the world kind of came to us in our food scene, in the languages that we speak, in the interactions we have with each other. And so I think uplifting that and sharing also all the goodness and all the magnificence that comes out of our communities is amazing. And checking in with neighbors and you know letting people know that they can come to you if they have questions. I mean, you all have access to FIEL, and like if you know, God forbid, one of your neighbors or friends were getting picked up, you can easily get a hold of us, and we'll try to guide them to this very difficult process. And the third thing that you all can do is I am starting in August. I get this. I always get this notion in my head. The holidays are coming up, and so if you have family members, if you have coworkers or friends, or that maybe not or maybe not be as knowledgeable about the immigration issues and have a biased opinion of it, right now is the time to be controversial. Right now is the time to say, to question and say, you know, why do you, a lot of the times, people say, well, immigrants are bad. And but when you ask them, why are they bad, or why do you think that they're bad? As the news says that they're bad. And there's all these gang members and things like that. Well, did you know that in the Trump administration, 74% of people getting picked up have absolutely no criminal record or no immigration history. They just happen to be here without documents because getting documentation, if your brother's positioning you, takes what, 22 years? And so like there's a lot of things that can be, some people, I still believe that some people are not anti-immigrant because they're bad people. They're just ignorant, and they hear uh, the podcast and Trump, you know, Truth Social, and all those things. So I love controversy. That's why I get sued, and and in my family, I'm always like the one that's like, and not just around. I mean, my family is obviously very pro-immigrant, but around other issues, um, there's you know, I'm always like, I'm gonna start controversy now, and I just blurt something out, and then we have very lively discussions on some of these other issues, including like issues like the LGBTQ community. Anti-blackness was a very tough conversation we had to have in my family as a family who grew up fearing the black community, but we didn't know why. And so, like, these topics should be brought up and should be talked about openly so that we can get to a better spot.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cesar.
Thank
We
you.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes left, and uh, so the next
Yep.
monthly meeting will be on Monday, October 6th, same time, and we'll promise you that we will have a good speaker arranged, and Julie is working on a speaker for November, so we have it all planned. And let's see, uh, anything else, Bob,
No,
to add on?
I'm like him. I'm starting to suffer from allergies a little bit. So yeah.
Okay. Uh,
And,
and and
and, and
and
before I will be remiss if I didn't address Miss Janet in the chat. She had two really good points. One of them was you know, she says she's Latina, but she's afraid to get targeted. So aside from carrying around your birth certificate, there is a passport card that you can get, and it's like $35, and you can get it at the same time you get your passport, and it's basically like a passport that you can carry in your wallet. And I cannot believe that I'm giving you all this advice. It breaks my heart every time I have to tell people that. But unfortunately, given the times, that's a way that you can protect yourself. And yes, being undocumented is not a illegal crime. It's not a crime, but rather it's a civil offense. But they try to use words like illegal alien and things like that to make people think and to get the perception that it is a crime to be in this country undocumented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all on October 6th. You all have a good evening. And Cesar, thank you so
Thank you.
much. I know you are busy, but yeah, we'll see you tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening I'll be there, and thank you so much, and thank you. It's always a pleasure to speak to this group, and please let us know whenever we can come back. We'd be more than happy to.
Thank you. All right,
God
guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you,
Bye-bye.
Cesar. Bye.
Great meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Okay. Okay. Actually, we just shut down. I'll be all done. I mean, I know it's late, but